Hello and welcome to another video. Today we are reviewing another ink. This is from Graf von Faber-Castell, the premium line from Faber-Castell, and it is moss green. Although I have written everywhere green moss. So it is moss green, and it's a really interesting green. It's got some lovely lighter shading that are sort of reminiscent of things like Mont Blanc Irish green, but then some beautiful dark shading and just a really lovely sort of red sheen. And as I said before, this lighting doesn't pick up sheen incredibly well, but I think you can probably see it there a little bit. So let's put it through its paces. First things first, this is how the ink comes packaged. I really enjoy the box that this comes in. It's got a nice sort of label on it, and the Graf von Faber-Castell branding, I think, is really super classy. This is a 75ml bottle, and like the packaging, the box, it's just an absolutely beautiful bottle. It's classy, it's elegant. This is the sort of bottle that you do keep on your desk just as a statement as well. It's just absolutely beautiful glass. The opening of the bottle is definitely wide enough for most pens. There's a really lovely shot of the color inside the bottle there. It's just it's a really nice, classy bottle for what I think is a really nice, classy ink. Let's start with this ink on Tourmaline River paper. This is in a Bond Travel Gear notebook that isn't made anymore. Bond Travel Gear was the precursor to Lockby. 68 GSM Tourmaline River paper. As I said, green moss, which is actually moss green. So it's always moss green. Lovely dark green, but with some nice vibrancy as well. I do think it's a lovely colour. I have it in two pens, two TWSBI Gos as usual, a broad and an extra fine. It's premium. So what I mean by that is that it is the premium line from Faber-Castell. Graf von Faber-Castell sort of doing the higher end fine writing side of Faber-Castell. This ink was provided for me for review by Faber-Castell here in Australia, so thank you very much to them. And along with that comes a slightly elevated price tag, but also it is a very high quality ink. The next point is the saturation. It is a beautifully saturated ink, even in the finer nib. You do get a lovely sense of the darkness always coming through. Next point is sheen. If you are a sheen lover, this ink does sheen. In writing on the Tourmaline River paper, you get the sheen. You get hits of it on Rhodia, but on Tourmaline River, it's there. I've put fourth point as good bleed. Now, what I mean by that is, as you'll see when I look at it on lower end paper, it doesn't bleed as much as a lot of other inks. And the next point is that it's good for art. If you look at the water resistance over here, it moves around a lot. So if you use ink in like a watercolour sense, moving it with a water brush pen or whatever the case may be, this is a nice ink. It's wet enough so that you don't get super fast dry time, but it does move nicely as well. When it rehydrates, it moves beautifully. Okay, performance. Now, this is has very nice shading and saturation, as I said. It's a rich dark green. Definitely not the worst on Feather and Bleed, as I said, on low quality paper. It's a smooth ink with good flow, but it isn't super wet. It's wet enough, definitely, but it isn't sort of super wet. And that ties in, I think, also with the quality of the performance. Extras, I've put good shade and sheen. There's no shimmer or anything on this ink. Let's look at it on a couple of other types of paper now, starting with Rhodia. So this is an 80 GSM Rhodia pad. Graf von Faber-Castell green moss, or moss green. Nice ink. I love the depth of colour, and it does feel nice on the page, and you can see some nice shading there, hits of the sheen. Certainly also on the swab there we see some sheen, once again with nice shading. It's rich and it's dark, and if we look at the reverse of that, there's nothing that has come through, which is great. Not even the swab has really broken through. And there's a couple of points where I have put down like a considerable amount of ink, and that extra fine does sort of dig into the paper a little bit when you sort of scratch it in like that, and nothing has come through. Let's look at it on some even more affordable paper. First is the printer paper. This is 80 gram like reflex copy paper with moss green there, the two pens. It's a duller green. It's much more of that sort of forest dark green, which I think is the moss green element. And if we look at the reverse there, like if we look at that in comparison to the other inks on the page, this really does come through much less than any other. It's good. It's come through, of course, where the we have laid down a considerable amount of ink, but that's just pushing it to its limits. But in the general writing, we get a couple of spots, but really it's not too bad. And then even the feathering, like it's pretty, like it does feather a little bit because this is not fountain pen friendly paper, but it holds together pretty well. And if we look at it now on Spyrex and student notepad paper, this is the quite low end paper, super affordable. It once again, the feathering is definitely not the worst. It holds together well. And on the back there, if we look at that in comparison to the other inks once again, we can see that once again it holds together nicely. It doesn't bleed as much as a lot of other inks, and I think the color once again nice sort of dark rich sort of forest green. If we look at the water resistance, as I said, the ink rehydrates and moves fairly well, but there is a dark green blue sort of held back once the water has been removed. You also see that tied in with the chromatography. There's a nice rich line. We get lots of nice grey to blue sort of coming through, which is beautiful. Greens, and then of course a lovely yellow at the top, which I think some of that vibrancy does certainly come through in the shading of this ink. And if we look at colour comparisons, now I just chose two sort of random-ish, dark-ish greens for this. And so what we've got is, of course, the Graf von Faber-Castell there in the middle with its high sheen. And on the right, we have Mont Blanc Irish Green, which I think ties in nicely with some of that lighter shading there. And then Robert Oster, and this is Forest Green, which is a more earthy tone, but a beautiful green nonetheless. Now let's talk about the price. In Australia, this retails for anywhere between $36 and $50. There's a couple of retailers that have it towards the lower end of that, and there's a couple of retailers that have it towards the higher end of that, and that is for the 75ml bottle. This ink also comes in cartridge form, and just for the basic sort of 6-pack of cartridges, looking at $5 to $6 Australian. In the US, a price I found this for was $32 US. So we are talking on the pricey end of ink here, but it is for 75 mils in a lovely glass bottle, and it performs well. And the cartridges for 6 retailed at the same retailer for $4 US. So score, I've given this a 4 out of 5. It's a great color. It has great performance. Not exactly water resistant, but it's not trying to be. But the only thing that stops this getting a higher score is the fact that it is just a little bit more expensive than some other ink. And so that is taken into account with that as well. But 4 out of 5 for a very, very good ink. This was Graf von Faber-Castell or Faber-Castell Moss Green. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce. Please feel free to get in touch using any of the platforms listed below. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at @the_offstage_me, or you can contact me on any of my videos here, or drop me an email which is listed down below. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you'd like to support the channel by sponsoring a review or providing an item for review, I would love to hear from you. Once again, a big thanks to Faber-Castell here in Australia for providing this ink for review. In the meantime, enjoy your inks, enjoy your writing, and I'll talk to you soon.